Hey everyone, it's Alexander Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and this is my review for The Little Mermaid, the 2023 remake of the 1989 Disney movie of the same name, and also another adaptation of the Hans Christian Andersen story. It's directed by Rob Marshall and stars Halle Bailey as Ariel, the Little Mermaid who is obsessed with the human world, wants to learn more about it, but is forbidden to know more about it because of her father, King Triton. One night she saves a human from drowning, Prince Eric, and she's madly in love with him. So she ends up making a deal with the sea witch Ursula to get human legs so she can be with Eric, but that would also mean that she risks leaving the ocean and her entire family. It was only a matter of time before the first movie in Disney's Renaissance got the live-action treatment, and I have not been the biggest fan of this trend of live-action Disney remakes. I can't say I dislike any of them because I think The Jungle Book and Guy Ritchie's Aladdin are great. I mean, okay, Jungle Book, sure. Guy Ritchie's Aladdin is not really amazing per se, but I thought it was a fun movie. But most of these remakes tend to be pretty lackluster, like Beauty and the Beast, Peter Pan and Wendy, or they just end up being straight up terrible, like The Lion King, Pinocchio, and Alice in Wonderland. The original Little Mermaid has always been a movie that I've gone back and forth during my life. I started out really liking this movie, then in my late teens, early 20s, didn't really have the best view on it, and now that I'm in my 30s, it's bounced back to being in my top 10 of Disney animated movies. And a lot of my friends and colleagues that saw the movie before it came out had nothing but praise for it, saying that it's one of the best Disney remakes out there and not in a backhanded compliment sort of way. So I went into it more willing to give it a chance than some of the other adaptations. And unfortunately, it didn't really do a whole lot for me. Is it the best Disney live-action remake that we've gotten in this decade so far? Hell yes. I don't count Cruella because that's more of a prequel, and honestly, I think Cruella is a better movie than this. Now, is it one of the best Disney live-action remakes that some people have claimed it to be? In some spots it is. The biggest thing about this movie that makes it better than most out there is the two leads. First of all, Halle Bailey is a great Ariel. She really encompasses everything that made that character so great in the original film, right down to the voice, her adventurous and curious personality. Like, she really does a great job filling in for what Jodie Benson did all the way back in 1989. She's fantastic. And her chemistry with Jonah Hauer-King is really what makes this movie worth watching. In The Original Mermaid, I still think that that was the first attempt to actually have a believable romance in Disney animation, and it worked. But this movie says, okay, let's take that romance and actually expand on it. Let's give these characters more time to really get to know each other, and I think it works tremendously. Anytime these two are on screen, the movie is actually really, really good. And there's a few other things that I actually like about this movie. Daveed Diggs, I think, is really entertaining as Sebastian. I will still prefer the Disney animated one, but with this version, the animators actually gave Sebastian a lot of personality with the face, and Daveed Diggs does a really good job with the voice. And I think this film's rendition of Kiss the Girl is very fitting with the film's mood. It's not a big musical number like it was in the original film. It's more atmospheric, mellow, and fits perfectly with what's been built up to that point. So I think there's a lot to really like about this movie. But the rest of it, unfortunately, felt very hollow. It just felt as uninspired as most of Disney's live-action remakes. King Triton is played by Javier Bardem in this movie, and I thought he was phoning it in. There was not a single point throughout the film where I thought he cared for Ariel's safety. He did everything in his power to prevent Ariel from interacting with the human world. I don't want to have to keep making comparisons to the animated movie, but when I watched the original, I truly got the impression that King Triton was so protective of Ariel from the human world that he would go to great lengths and at points would actually be quite terrifying. Like, there were points where King Triton scared me with how far he was willing to go to protect his daughter. And it backfires on him when you get to the second half of the film. And when I reviewed the animated movie, I said that if this version was able to build upon King Triton and make him more of a fleshed out character, then I'll give the movie credit for that. And this remake does do that. We get a little more backstory behind King Triton's past, but it's more in passing and doesn't really play into the rest of the plot. So that was very disappointing. Melissa McCarthy plays Ursula the Sea Witch, and she was sort of born to play this role, but I also felt like she was really restrained. She just didn't leave that much of an impression on me, though she's nowhere near as boring as Jafar from Guy Ritchie's Aladdin. Although I do have to say, much like with King Triton's backstory, there is a slight change in terms of Ursula's past and how she kind of connects to King Triton. I won't say what that is because it's not revealed in the trailers, but I will say that I don't think it added anything. One thing that this movie does add are some new songs with lyrics by Lin-Manuel Miranda. And when you watch this movie, I want you to play a game of guess which songs were written by Howard Ashman and which were not written by him. Because the new songs in this movie, while not bad, they're not really all that memorable. I can't recall a single moment in this movie where the new songs actually stuck out. It's not like Speechless in Guy Ritchie's Aladdin, which I thought was a fantastic song, but it was incorporated into the movie in a very awkward and shoehorned manner. The songs here are more organic, but they didn't leave that much of an impression. Well, one song did, but not for the right reasons. To be totally honest, I think this movie would have worked better if it wasn't a musical. With the exception of Part of Your World and Kiss the Girl, none of the other songs really contribute a whole lot. And in terms of Poor Unfortunate Souls and Under the Sea, they feel really empty and hollow. I feel like every time this movie tries to harken back to the animated film, it just feels more like an obligation rather than actually doing something inspired with these moments. Because Under the Sea contributes to a huge problem I have with this movie. It's that the underwater sequences are so ugly to look at. And for once, I don't even have to compare the way this movie looks to the animated movie. I can compare the way this movie's underwater sequences look to Avatar: The Way of Water. Because when you watch Avatar, you feel like these characters are underwater and they're interacting with a bunch of aquatic life. And that's because the actors were actually performing motion capture underwater. And it also wasn't afraid to be as colorful as it was. That movie was bright and beautiful to look at, whereas this movie is ugly, the colors are muted, and it feels so lifeless. Every time I see Halle Bailey, Javier Bardem, or Melissa McCarthy underwater, I never once get the impression that these actors are underwater. It feels like they're just sitting in front of a green screen with CG hair waving in the background, and it's really not appealing to watch. You might accuse me of nitpicking in this moment, and if you've seen the movie, it might not bother you, and that's fine, but for a company like Disney that has a shit ton of money, and considering how much money these movies make, there's really no excuse for the underwater sequences to look as bad as they do. So, if anything, that was ultimately what took me out of the movie. That's what keeps me from really recommending it. Because at the end of the day, Rob Marshall's The Little Mermaid doesn't offer a whole lot. I do give the movie credit where credit is due. The romance between Ariel and Eric is expanded upon further, the chemistry between the two actors is like lightning in a bottle, and every time they're on screen together, that's when the movie is at its best. Everything else just didn't work for me, so I have to say watch at your own risk. This is a Disney remake that I don't fault anyone for loving it. Like, this is not like The Lion King, where I think back on it and go, why the hell do people like this movie? No, this one, it's like, I don't care for it myself, but I can see where others really like it. And that's ultimately why I give this movie that rating. You can only judge it for yourself. If you're excited about seeing this movie, then go for it. If you have no interest at all, then you might want to wait till it comes out on Disney Plus or just skip it entirely. And there you go, that's my review for the 2023 remake of The Little Mermaid. Now tomorrow I'm going to be putting out a small video in terms of the future on this channel. There's some changes that I'm going to be making, some announcements, and yeah, just stay tuned. It's not going to be a live stream. I'm not going to be answering questions. It's just a video that I want to make to cut straight to the point on what I want to tell you guys. So until then, I want to know what you guys think about this movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd. I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.